Welcome. This is the first video of the second set of videos related to the tutorial of the course Digital Economy and Data Analytics. Hi, my name is Eik van Vuren, and today we're going to look at a very interesting topic, and that is the topic of web scraping. At the moment that we're going to think about web scraping, then the first question that we have to ask ourselves is, of course, what is web scraping? Well, a very formal definition with respect to web scraping is that web scraping implies that you gather information from the internet. Now you should of course realize that that's what we usually do at the moment that we're going to browse websites. We usually do that because of the fact that we want to get information from the internet. So essentially web scraping is a little bit more than that. What we usually mean with web scraping is that we actually are not going to just gather information, but we're also going to store that, for example, in an external file. But this still implies, of course, that simply copying, pasting from the internet and then from a particular website, and then putting that in another file, such as, for example, a Word document, already means that we are going to do web scraping. However, we should realize that that is not what we usually refer to at the moment that we talk about web scraping. It's more that we refer to web scraping as an automated process. That means that we're going to use programming code, in order to, have a completely automated process in which, information from a particular website is going to be put in finally an external file. Well, the nice thing to say here is that Python is actually very good in doing so. So Python here is very useful, and that's because of the fact that Python has a particular library called Beautiful Soup, and that's also the library that we're going to use today. Now, an important question that arises is, why would we be interested, us as econometricians, to do any web scraping? Of course, you could do web scraping for a hobby, and a lot of people actually do so, but why would we as econometricians be interested in doing web scraping? Well, web scraping can be especially interesting for econometricians to obtain data that are difficult to obtain otherwise. In order to explain that, let's look at a particular example. In this case, this example actually comes from an earlier paper of mine that I have written a couple of years ago, and that has been one of the first papers published in econometrics using web scraping. That's a paper together with Peter Cochet and Arjen Siegman. They are both at the Free University of Amsterdam, or maybe better to say Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And actually what I can say is that I was also working by that time at that university in Amsterdam. It's a paper from 2008, and the title is Terrorism and Attitudes Towards Minorities, the Effect of the Theo van Gogh Murder on House Prices in Amsterdam. The paper is published in the Journal of Urban Economics, and the most important thing that we actually do over there is that we look at house price data, and what we do is that we compare house price developments in the year after the Theo van Gogh murder, that was back in 2004, and we compare the house price developments between neighborhoods that had relatively a lot of migrants from Turkish and Moroccan background, and we compare that to the price developments of the other neighborhoods in Amsterdam. Well, the most important question then of course arises, how did we actually get the house price data? Well, we got that from a particular website called Vanda.nl, and that's mostly related to the topic of today, web scraping, because of the fact that we actually got that by scraping that particular website. I suppose that everybody who's from the Netherlands already knows what Vanda.nl actually is. It's a website that actually has, all the houses for sale in the Netherlands. So that means that at the moment that you would like to buy a house, then you usually go to this Vanda.nl. However, it's also an interesting website in order to do web scraping, in order to get, say, not just price data of houses, but you get also additional information like the size of the house and also the location of the house. And that we used for this particular project.